Hello and welcome to Pause for Payments. I am Kristy Duncan. I'm delighted to be chatting today with Katie Odell, who is credit card executive at USAA, based in Wilmington in the US. Welcome, Katie.
Thank you, Kristy. Glad to be here.
Awesome. Today, Katie and I are going to talk about leading through transformational change. We'll look at the role of leadership in driving the change, as well as some of the challenges that can arise. You ready to get going, Katie?
I'm ready to dig in.
Awesome. Can we start by talking a little bit about your role at USAA and how you got there?
Sure. So I believe we spoke probably a year ago. I've been here almost 2 years, joined from another financial institution, and I'm in the card space. We've been working through shoring up our regulatory controls and looking to rebuild the business. From a credit card product perspective, from an infrastructure and a platform perspective. And we are really poised to have that kind of market reentry with some of our products, our card designs, and a lot of our servicing infrastructure. I manage what we call the member journey, member experience side of the business. So everything from your storefront, when you go to look at a credit card, through to using your card, your point of sale, authorized user, all of those, what we call experiences, through to account closure. And so what we've been working on over the course of this year is moving towards an agile methodology, an agile organization. And I was fortunate enough to lead that for the card business and also for the retail bank space within USAA. And it's been a very exciting year.
Wow, sounds really exciting. So you've been working on these transformations and building out your agile capabilities. Do you want to talk a little bit more about the transformations that you've led at USAA?
Yes. So when I joined a little over a year and a half ago, we were in the throes of building out our controls, closing issues, closing remediations, and things like that. Very operational in nature, very control oriented. And now we're really at the point in our business to reframe our focus on the member and developing solutions to improve the member experience, whether that be through products, through card designs, or through improved platforms and experiences to make using your credit card much easier and seamless for the member. The transformations that we've been talking about, that I'm here to talk about today, is one of organizational transformation. So we have our project management office, PMO, that is really leading the charge in helping us to move to a agile, safe methodology. So reframing and reorganizing our teams into agile teams to drive development in a quick, seamless manner, and to organize the work into the areas that make sure so it's much more efficient to get that work done. So my job has been, over the last 8 to 9 months of this year, is to help figure out the work to be done, empower and organize my teams to document that, and then move forward with that transformation for employees, for team members, and for the actual organizational development side of the business. And that's been the focus over the last 9 months since the beginning of the year.
Wow, big focus, but I'm sure fantastic outcomes for not only your team, but as well as the customer.
Yes.
Awesome. So this sounds like an organizational transformation you're working on. How did you approach the people aspect of the change process? And were there any particular challenges there?
So great question. And in any great organizational change, obviously, it's all about the way people work, but the people themselves and how they show up. And while I would say the actual work definition was the easy part, the not so easy part is really making sure that you're helping your leaders and helping your team members understand the change, the reason for the change, and the emotion side of the change. So tackling the fear, the uncertainty, the disruption, and making sure that you are on top of that, understanding the feedback, addressing the concerns, and really shepherding the whole team through the process to get to the other side where you are working more efficiently, where you are working with less handoffs and things are getting done more quickly and people are able to see the vision. But to get from point A to point C is a lot of time spent with people just listening and understanding what people are going through, and then making sure you're addressing any type of feedback or challenges that come up. And one thing I didn't mention was our team was the first. We were the leader, the pilot, however you want to call it. And so we had a lot of opportunities to gain lessons learned, people feedback. We kept a punch list of that feedback so that we were able to create the best practices on how this should be rolled out across the organization. So my number one focus is listen and empower your teams to be able to drive those changes forward, but also be empathetic, because it is a lot of uncertainty and it's a lot of stress when you have kind of chaotic and disruptive change in your day-to-day work. It's hard to actually get your work done when you're worried or you're trying to figure things out as you're going along. So very much a focus for listening and addressing that change with your people.
Well, fantastic learnings from that, Katie. I love this. Can we talk a little bit about mentorship and coaching? We know that those two things can help us through a lot of the challenges that we encounter during our careers. Can you share your thoughts on the benefits or downsides, perhaps, of having a mentor and a coach?
So great question. So two things. One, I'll address the differences of the two. A mentor, and I have several. I actually have some formal and informal mentors, and I've had them kind of over my career. And what I like about that is it brings me diversity of thought. So it's not just, okay, someone higher up in credit card or someone higher up in banking that's going to give me career advice, but it's also someone to ask me, hey, did you think about XYZ? Or have you tried this? Or have you connected with so-and-so? And especially when you come into a new organization, you don't know anybody. So you really need to reach out and say, hey, do you have 10 minutes for a flyby or the virtual coffee? I just want to get to know you and get to know the organization and how the organization runs. And I will say that has been my greatest asset through this organizational transformation, is having those connections and allies across the organization to bounce ideas off of. And then also to raise those concerns like, hey, something's going to go off the rails if we don't do XYZ. Like, here's a challenge. And it's because you built that relationship and that trust with that mentor, they're able to help and influence some of that work that's coming their way or their team's way. I've also had an executive coach, and was really probably about a year ago, I started with her and I worked with her for about 6 months. And the difference is you can bring some of those personal growth and personal challenges where you might not express a weakness to your mentor. I was able to bring her, case studies like, I'm going through a certain situation. How do I deal with it? It didn't work for me when I dealt a certain way in the past. And I got great advice, great practical skills to bring to whatever that situation was. And so by meeting with her every 2 weeks, and it was great because I had pre-work before every time. What did you learn? What did you learn from your last session? Did you put it into practice? What challenges did you face? And what do you want to work on in this session? And one of the things coming into a new organization, and the way that banking is structured, it can be difficult, talk about women in payments, for a woman in banking to find her voice. And, I was asked last week if I could go back to my 22-year-old self, would I tell her anything different? And one of the things I learned over the last, again, it tied well with this organizational change, is to establish boundaries and be assertive and be more confident. Because when you're asked to lead something, it's probably because management knows you can do it, and you have to believe in yourself, but you also have to say no to the things that no longer serve you or no longer work or are not going to help you in your journey. And that means, setting those boundaries and meetings that have no purpose or that you're not going to get what you need out of them. You have to be assertive and say that and really drive that. And I think that really helped me this year accomplish what we needed to accomplish from a team perspective. And the great thing is I was able to really transfer that guidance that I got from my coaching to the leaders on my team, where they may have been viewed or worried about being viewed as aggressive or, maybe not so nice. They were really empowered to be assertive and drive their mission and their vision forward. And so it was a great way to pay that forward. So I highly recommend having a mentor, having a coach, and also being a mentor and having people where you can, again, impart your knowledge and learn from them too, and be vulnerable and help explain and lead the next generation of women in payments.
That's such great insight. Thanks so much, Katie. For those in the audience who might be facing disruptive change in their own organizations, can you share some advice that you would offer to them?
Yes. So a couple things. One, acknowledge that it's scary. Acknowledge that you may not get all the work you need to get done in the right, the timely manner that you think. And look for your allies. You're going to need support. You're going to need psychological safety so that you're able to bring up challenges and concerns and face people who may be, displaced or move to other teams. And you're going to have to be the face of that. And it takes a lot of courage and a lot of conviction and belief to be able to deliver those messages. And what you need your support. You need your brotherhood, your sisterhood, your allies to be able to have that confidence and the practice where you're going to go in front of folks and have to explain the vision and get buy-in and empower your teams. The other piece of advice that I would give is have listening posts. Set up, we call them pulse sessions here, where management is not included. Have, teams of peers, have open dialogue, capture that feedback anonymously, and then have forums to address it. And I kind of joke that it's staring down the beast, but again, you gain that strength by addressing the feedback. It's not easy, but you as a person and as a leader and as a woman will grow by having to address that challenging feedback and then do something about it. So not just say, oh, we're going to do XYZ, actually have a plan. And this is where having allies and the right support comes into play, because you're going to need help to actually address, concerns in staffing, concerns that, other people are going to maybe look for another job or leave, or you're going to lose knowledge. You're going to need to be able to unify your teams to see the vision, and you're going to need the support staff to be able to do that. So again, have your allies, pull together and be able to address the feedback and the concerns and the fear head on, and then continue to celebrate, continue to move forward. So as you have small wins, celebrate them. As you staff out for the new teams, celebrate that. There's a time for mourning the old, and there's a time to celebrate the new. And you'll know that cutoff, and you have to celebrate the wins and really empower your teams to move forward into the new model and be able to pull teams with them and celebrate the work and the accomplishments that they're able to do once you start to get moving.
Fantastic. I love that. This has been really insightful, Katie. Thank you so much. I love this whole transformation, how it's transforming not only the organization and the customer journey, but the employees and how they work and how they work with each other and how they serve the clients. It's really fantastic. Your listen, empower, and have empathy also resonate. And setting boundaries is so important. But last but not least, celebrating the wins, listening to your staff, and how can you address the challenges and celebrate the wins. Fantastic.
Yes.
Katie, this has been a great discussion. Thank you so much for your insights. I'd like to close today's discussion with a question that we ask all of our guests for Pause for Payments. And we might have asked you in the past as well, but you've always got great insights. Might you share some career advice that you would give to the rising stars in our audience?
That's a great question. My number one thing, and I was asked this last week, stay relevant, stay up on trends, If you're asked, like I said earlier, if you're asked to lead something, say yes. If you're tapped on the shoulder for a new project, say yes. If you're not moving out of your comfort zone on a regular basis, you're not growing. And we should be constantly growing, constantly learning, and build your network. Ask for help, know your strengths, develop and ask for help on your weaknesses. But my number one thing, especially for women in payments, is to stay up, stay on your education, and stay relevant.
I know that from somebody with a PhD, that's somebody who definitely practices what you preach.
Exactly, exactly.
And yeah, it certainly has done you well in your career. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for sharing this, Katie. I love your insights. There's so much packed in there, and we could chat for hours about all this, but sadly we're out of time. And I'm going to thank you so much for sharing your insights. It's been a great discussion.
Thank you, Kristy, and thank you, Women in Payments.
Thank you, Katie, and thank you to all of our audience for listening and joining us today as we explore the exciting world of payments with Katie and other inspirational leaders from around the world of payments.